You can love deeply without carrying what was never yours to hold. Some people feel everything. They notice the pain in the room before anyone says a word. They pick up tension, grief, fear, and sadness almost instantly. And because they care so much, they begin to believe that love means taking it all in. But compassion and burden are not the same thing. Today's animal story reveals what happens when empathy turns into over-responsibility and when care slowly becomes collapse. This is the story of the elephant who carried everyone's pain. Welcome to Integrity 444 Animal Archetype Story Lessons, where we use symbolic animal stories to explore emotional patterns, psycho-spiritual growth, LTQS, self-mastery, and aligned living. In this episode, we're uncovering what the elephant reveals about empathy, false responsibility, emotional burden, and the difference between loving deeply and over-carrying what is not yours. The elephant is a creature of loyalty, emotional depth, memory, steadiness, and care. Its gift is presence. Its gift is devotion. Its gift is the ability to stand near pain without immediately turning away. But when that gift becomes distorted, it can turn into over-responsibility, emotional merging, rescuing, and the belief that love must become burden. This story begins in a place where compassion was beautiful, but boundaries had quietly gone missing. In the wide, fertile land called the River Plain of Echoing Steps, there lived an elephant named Toma. Toma was known by everyone as the one who could hold sorrow. When animals were grieving, they came to Toma. When they were confused, they came to Toma. When their hearts were heavy, they sat beside him beneath the trees or by the riverbanks, because something about his presence made them feel safe. Toma listened slowly. He remembered details. He did not rush people out of their pain. He did not turn away from tears. Because of this, everyone trusted him. And at first, Toma believed this was simply love. But over time, something inside him began to change. After every conversation, he felt heavier. When another animal was anxious, he carried their anxiety into the night. When one was grieving, he carried their grief in his chest as if it were his own. When conflict broke out in the plain, he felt responsible not only to care, but to absorb, fix, and somehow hold it all together. The more others leaned on him, the more he silently agreed to carry what they brought. He never said this out loud. He never declared, "Give me all your pain." But inside himself, he had made a quiet agreement. If you are hurting, I should carry it too. If you are overwhelmed, I should help by taking some of it into myself. If I am strong enough, then maybe no one else has to feel alone. At first, this made him seem wise and noble. But slowly it began to crush him. He started waking tired. His steps grew slower. The songs of the river sounded distant. Even when the morning air was cool and beautiful, something in him felt weighed down before the day even began. Still, when others came, he said yes. One evening, after listening to story after story of pain, loss, conflict, and disappointment, Toma made his way toward a sacred place called the Stone Crossing. The Stone Crossing was an ancient line of broad river stones laid across a slow-moving current. The elders said that those who walked it while carrying what was not theirs would feel the weight become undeniable. Toma stepped onto the first stone, then the second, then the third. And with each step, his body felt heavier. By the middle of the crossing, he was struggling to move. His breath shortened, his shoulders tightened. His legs trembled beneath a weight that felt far greater than his own life could explain. He looked down into the river below, and in the reflection, he saw something that stopped him. He did not see only himself. He saw bundles, heavy bundles draped over his back, his sides, and his spirit, and each one carried the mark of another life, another sorrow, another fear, another burden he had taken on as if it belonged to him. He stared at the water, stunned. Then, as though rising from the stones and the river together, he heard these words. Compassion can walk beside pain. It was never asked to carry it all. Toma stood very still. For the first time, he saw the truth clearly. He had confused support with responsibility. He had confused empathy with absorption. He had confused love with burden-bearing. That night, Sepha the owl sat beside him in silence until he was ready to speak. At last, Toma said, "If I do not carry it, will that mean I do not care?" Sepha looked at him gently. "No," she said. "It may mean you are finally learning how to care truthfully." The words entered him slowly. The next morning, Lena the deer came to Toma with her own sadness. Normally, he would have taken her pain inside himself immediately. He would have felt it in his own chest, held it in his own body, walked away carrying it as though it were somehow his task to resolve. But this time, something was different. He listened. He stayed present. He kept breathing into the earth beneath him. He noticed the old pull to absorb her pain. He noticed the familiar urge to rescue by taking it on. And inwardly, he said, "This is hers to feel. I can love her without carrying it for her." He did not pull away. He did not become cold. He did not rush her. He simply remained with her without becoming her container in the way he always had before. When the conversation ended, something surprising happened. He still cared. He still felt tenderness, but he was not crushed. This marked the beginning of a new way. Toma did not stop listening. He did not stop caring. He did not stop showing up for those in pain. But he stopped taking everything into his own body. When others came to him grieving, he would say, "I am with you," instead of silently deciding, "I must carry this for you." When conflict arose, he would support truth and steadiness without becoming responsible for everyone's emotional process. When heaviness came near, he learned to ask, "Is this mine to tend, or am I taking on what belongs to another?" At first, this felt unfamiliar. Some animals were even confused. They had grown used to placing their pain into Toma's strength and walking away lighter while he walked away heavier. Now something new was required. They had to feel what was theirs. And strangely, that began to help them too. Because Toma's change did not reduce love in the river plain, it purified it. Others became stronger. Their grief became more honest. Their responsibility became clearer. And Toma, for the first time in a long time, began to feel the river song return. His steps grew steadier again. His breath deepened. His strength no longer felt burdened by invisible weight. And from that season on, the river plain remembered him not only as compassionate, but as rooted. Because Toma discovered what many tender-hearted people must eventually learn. Love does not require you to collapse under what was never yours to carry. This story is not only about an elephant. It is about what happens in us when empathy loses its boundaries. The elephant represents the deep, loyal, emotionally present part of the human being, the part that remembers, the part that cares, the part that does not run from pain easily, the part that wants to help, hold, and protect. This is a beautiful part. But the shadow of the elephant appears when compassion becomes over-responsibility. It appears when we take on the emotions of everyone around us. It appears when we feel responsible for fixing pain that is not ours. It appears when we absorb grief, stress, fear, and tension as though love requires us to carry it internally. It appears when care turns into collapse. And this is where many deeply loving people get confused. Because overcarrying can feel noble, it can feel generous, it can feel like proof of how much you care. But often it is not pure compassion. Sometimes it is false responsibility. Sometimes it is emotional merging. Sometimes it is the fear that if you do not carry it, you are abandoning the other person. The healing of the elephant begins when compassion stays open but stops taking on what is not its assignment. Through the LTQS lens, this story unfolds in 4 movements. Listen. Toma first has to notice the heaviness. He notices the exhaustion in his body. He notices how burdened he feels after every painful interaction. He notices that his care has become weight. That is the first movement, listening deeply enough to recognize when compassion has slipped into overcarrying. Tell the truth. The central truth of the elephant is this: I have been carrying pain that does not belong to me because I thought that was love. That is the confession. Not, I just care more than others. Not, someone has to hold everything. But, I have mistaken burden-bearing for compassion. Choose wisely. The wise choice comes when Toma remains present with Lena without absorbing her pain. He chooses grounded compassion. He chooses presence without merging. He chooses love without emotional collapse. Stay aligned. Then comes the ongoing work. Asking what is yours and what is not. Staying rooted during hard conversations. Releasing false responsibility. Offering support without swallowing another person's process. That is alignment for the elephant. From an EFV perspective, this story reflects collapse, emotional burden, and over-merging. This is the state where the system becomes weighed down by too much emotional material, not only from one's own life, but from the lives of others. The person may feel heavy, tired, flooded, or emotionally flattened because they are carrying far more than their own truth. In this pattern, a person may feel responsible for everyone's emotions, absorb the tone of every room, leave hard conversations feeling crushed, confuse empathy with taking things on, struggle to separate their pain from someone else's, feel chronic heaviness without understanding why. Underneath this often sits a belief like, if I care, I must carry it. If I don't take it on, I am failing them. If I am strong, I should hold more. If I release it, I am abandoning love. The healing move is to shift from overmerging into grounded compassion. Not numbness, not coldness, not indifference. Grounded compassion. That is the regulated elephant. So what does this look like in real life? It may look like leaving every conversation emotionally drained. It may look like feeling responsible for a partner's healing, a friend's mood, a child's distress, or a family system's tension. It may look like waking up heavy because you are carrying what everyone else is feeling. It may look like confusing emotional closeness with emotional fusion. It may look like saying, I just care a lot, while your body is quietly telling you that you are overloaded. And here's the deeper question. What are you carrying that may not actually be yours? Because many people who overcarry are not weak. They are often deeply loving, deeply attentive, deeply loyal. But love without boundaries can become distortion. You are allowed to care without collapsing. You are allowed to stand beside pain without swallowing it. You are allowed to support someone without becoming responsible for their entire emotional world. Compassion does not mean taking all the weight into yourself. Sometimes compassion means staying present while allowing another person to carry what belongs to them. That is not abandonment. That is honest love. So here's the question I want to leave with you. What burden are you carrying right now that may not actually be yours? And underneath that, where have you mistaken over-responsibility for love? Let this be your declaration. I can love deeply without carrying what is not mine. Again, I can love deeply without carrying what is not mine. And one more time, slowly, I can love deeply without carrying what is not mine. If this story spoke to you, share in the comments what stood out most. And after this video, I want to invite you into a simple practice. Take out a journal or a piece of paper and make 2 columns, mine and not mine. Then begin writing. What grief is yours to tend? What responsibility is yours to own? What emotional burden have you taken on from someone else? Let that practice show you where compassion has become overcarrying, and let that be the beginning of release. If this work is helping you understand emotional patterns, relational wounds, trauma responses, and the deeper process of healing, I also want to share 2 next steps with you. My book, Outsmarting the Narcissist, Psychological Edition, is available now on Amazon. And if you are ready for deeper guided support, visit integrity444ltqs.com to explore my courses. Foundation of Emotional Intelligence and Self-Mastery and Sovereignty After Narcissistic Separation and Recovery. These resources are here to help you move from emotional burden into clarity, from survival patterns into self-mastery, and from self-loss into truth and sovereignty.